You're listening to Systemic Error Podcast. The failure was designed.
The real reason the world is quietly erasing Donald Trump, based on an article by John Stoher. Trump's erasure is not accountability. The image is not the crime. FIFA choice to exclude Trump from celebratory images and the boos he drew during the ceremony are the only concrete facts that matter here. The rest is interpretation. A president of the United States was made visually disposable in a global sporting spectacle, and the source text uses that to argue that the real rebuke is aimed at the country, not just the man. That part is closer to the truth than most patriotic nonsense. But the sharper question is not whether Trump gets erased. It is who spent years giving him power, who keeps benefiting from his damage, and who is already preparing to convert accountability into amnesia. Power belongs to the people who built him. Trump does not float above politics as some autonomous pathology. He is the product of institutional cowardice, Republican complicity, elite indulgence, and a media culture that turns sabotage into entertainment. The source is right to reject the comforting lie that he is an exception to American history. He is a concentration of it. That means the Republican Party does not get to pretend it was merely trapped by him. It enabled him, protected him, and continues to harvest the loyalty he generated. The decision makers were never confused. They chose him because he served power, and they will choose a softer lie once he becomes inconvenient. The real misdirection is amnesia. The source correctly anticipates the coming campaign to forget him. Republicans will want distance. Some Democrats will want closure. Respectable white liberals will want a cleaner national story in which Trump appears as a bizarre interruption rather than a revealing exposure. That is the danger. Erasure is not justice. It is a management strategy. It allows institutions to avoid naming the conditions that made Trump possible. Racial grievance marketed as patriotism, corruption recast as authenticity, and elite panic that prefers managed decline to democratic repair. If Trump becomes a cautionary ghost instead of a political consequence, the machinery that produced him stays intact. The Democratic trap is moving on too fast. The source briefly notes that some Democrats will seek justice while many more will simply want to move on. That is the right suspicion. A Democratic coalition that treats Trump as a closed episode is already surrendering the argument. Democrats cannot afford to perform institutional memory, only when it is politically convenient. If they are serious, they have to name the network that empowered him, the officials who normalized him, and the voters who were fed a politics of domination, not for theater, for strategy. You do not defeat authoritarian politics by filing it under history and hoping the file stays shut. The world is not confused. The source lands on a hard point. This is not merely the world rejecting Trump. It is the world rejecting the United States' self-image. That is not anti-American melodrama. It is a recognition that American power is no longer granted moral credit by default. The booing and the image removal matter because they puncture the fantasy that U.S. institutions still command automatic reverence. Trump embarrassed the country, yes. But the deeper embarrassment is that so many Americans still think humiliation is the same thing as accountability. It is not. One is symbolic. The other requires naming who benefited, who complied, and who plans to do it again. Conclusion. Erasure is the old lie. The political pattern here is simple. Authoritarian figures are first enabled, then tolerated, and sanitized once they become embarrassing. That cycle protects the system more than it punishes the man. If Trump disappears from the public frame too neatly, the ruling class will claim victory without consequence. That is the oldest trick in American politics. Preserve the structure. Discard the mascot and call it renewal. The actual democratic task is harsher. Keep the record. Name the enablers. Refuse the rewrite. You've been listening to Systemic Error. Thanks to Alternet for today's article with the automated voice of Labert. Thanks for listening.